President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. I hand over the floor to the civil party lawyer to put the question to the civil party, and the chamber wishes to advise counsel that the time you have left is 15 minutes, inclusive of the question and answer.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. Madame Singh, in the 15 minutes that we have remaining, I wish to return very briefly to the topic of the evacuation of Phnom Penh, and secondly, your life in the village of Thong Meng. You stated that during the evacuation of Phnom Penh you saw many elderly people, many sick and infirmed along the road. Can you please tell us exactly what you saw? Were they abandoned on the side of the road, or were there any people who were providing care during the journey?
When we were evacuated out of Phnom Penh, I encountered numerous things. When on the morning we left Phnom Penh, we saw a lot of corpses along the road. The dead bodies were scattered everywhere, and along the roads I also some people who were dying. Particularly the elderly, they were deserted. They were actually sitting there helplessly, and they were really dying. Some of them were crying bitterly, looking for their children and relatives. I saw an old man. He was lying on the road. He was almost motionless. He could not really move his body, and I saw that there were ants crawling all over his body and went into his eye, and I saw the tear coming out of his house. And when I was walking and witnessing this misery, I could not hold my tear. I saw dead bodies everywhere, and people were dying along the street. I also once stepped on dead bodies. I sometimes walk over the dead body.
Merci, Madame Singh.
Thank you, Madame Singh. Earlier on, you stated that you were separated from your family. Can you please tell the court when you were separated from them, what effect it had on you, and what age you were when you were separated from your family?
I was separated from my family when I got to Tameng village, District 109, Takao Province. At that time, I was assigned to a different unit, and my parents were also separated and assigned to different units. And I was sent to the unit. I was very young. I was 9 years old when I left Phnom Penh. When I got to that unit, I stayed in Kampeng Pagoda. I did not have spare clothes to change. I only had a pack of clothes on my vest, and it was during rainy season over there at the time, and I got very cold at night, and I miss my parents and my grandparents dearly. Whenever I woke up, I could not hold my tear. I could not, however, return to my village because I was forced to move forward. I had to keep on walking At that time, I got to Trokchkom commune. I miss my parents dearly because never had I separate from my parents, and I had to work with the elderly people, with older people, and I did not have enough food to eat. I only ate watery gruel at that time, and I had no sibling, I had no family members around, so I cried every night. But no matter how hard I cried, and I could never return back home.
Merci, Madame Singh.
Thank you, Madame Singh. In the village of Taimeng, where you lived after you were deported from Phnom Penh, were there several categories of people? And if so, what were the distinct categories?
During the 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days, the 17 April people like me, we had to live a miserable life because we had a little food ration indeed. But as for the base people, they had different food ration, but I did not know exactly how much they got, but they ate in a different place. And as for the work assignment as well, they had a different workload assigned to them, and as for us, the 17 April people were given different workload, and they order us. Of course, the base people also worked at that times, but their work assignment was different from us.
Merci, Madame Singh.
Thank you, Madame Singh. You stated that you also took part in self-criticism sessions, and that if you ever misled or said something false, you were beaten. When or how would you be accused of saying something false?
When we were in Trokchkom unit, upon returning from our fieldwork at around 8 o'clock in the evening, we did not go to bed at that time. We would be summoned for a meeting, and there was a criticism and self-criticism session. And in that session, I was normally criticized by others that I was afraid of leeches, and I was slow in completing my work assignment. So at that time I was very young, was too young to know much things. So whenever they criticized me, I would criticize them back. So I was, as a consequence, beaten by the unit chief when I did not speak properly at that time.
Madame Singh, I have one final question for you. What do you expect of this tribunal today?
In this opportunity, I am expecting that this tribunal, the Khmer Rouge tribunal, move forward expeditiously. And I am also pleased that I have an opportunity to come and testify before the chamber. And I would also like to say in front of the chamber that during the period of the Democratic Cambodia, I lost my eyesight. Who is going to help me in my life? I am all alone. I am very lonely, and nobody helps me out.
Je n'ai pas d'autres questions.
Thank you, Madam Singh. I have no further questions. I know to what extent it was very difficult for you to testify today, and we are very grateful. Mr. President, I believe that Madam Singh wishes to address the accused with 2 brief questions, with your leave.
The President, Yes, Madam Sivata, you may proceed with your question. However, you have to ask your question through the President of the Chamber. You may not address to the accused directly. So you may proceed putting the question through me. Madam Sivata, I have two questions. My first question: why did the regime leaders at that time force children, underage children, to work like adults at that time? My second question: I know that during that regimes, people had cultivated rice. They had surplus of rice production, but why didn't they give sufficient food for people to eat? The President: thank you, Madam. I will refer your two questions to the co-accused. First, I refer these questions to Mr. Kilsampon. Mr. Kilsampon, you may proceed.
Kilsampon, good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good afternoon, everyone in the courtroom. And good afternoon, Madam Sein Sivata. The events that you have described actually shocked me. I did not have even the slightest knowledge that minors were used to work as adults, as just stated. You were only 11 years old and you were asked to go down the pit of the pig excrement and to carry the pig excrement. You fell down and you were beaten up until you lost your eyesight. Your feet were swollen, you could not walk properly, and you were still asked to continue working. I could not even imagine such a situation would happen. That is my first response to your first question. You stated that you tried your best to cultivate the products and gain the surplus, and why you were starved. The initial situation was difficult, but gradually, year by year, the situation improved markedly. And for that, you, as well as other Cambodian people who worked very hard, should be given sufficient food. And how come people were starved, and what happened to the rice? I cannot give you that answer, and my apology for that. And thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. We will now redirect the questions to Mr. Nunchir so that you can respond to the questions. I notice the counsel for Nunchir, Mr. Victor Coupe, on his feet, that you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our client has instructed us to tell you that he does not want to answer this question because he's tired.
Mr. President, thank you, Council. The floor is now given to the prosecution to put questions to this civil party. You may proceed. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors, and good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Madam Singh Sivutha. My name is Chandra Rasmay. I am the National Deputy Co-Prosecutor of this Khmer Rouge Tribunal, and I have some questions for you on behalf of the prosecution. Could you clarify to the court when you were sentenced to live in the Cambodian hotel in Phnom Penh between 1972 to 1975, what was the living condition at the time? Answer. In 1972, I came to live in the Cambodian hotel. I was considered as a refugee, and at that time there was the United Nations and the American organization who fed us with food, and we were given sufficient stuff for our living, food, rice, our daily consumption, bed sheet, mosquito net, etc. My family lived there, and we found it a happy living condition. My other sister and I were studying, and we were supported by the organization with food and book. So the living condition there was good, as we were supported by the American Red Cross organization. Question. Comparing the living condition under the Khmer Rouge regime and your living condition at the Cambodian hotel, what is your impression? Answer. If I have to compare the living condition that I lived before and after the 3 years, 8 months period, it was like the sky and the earth. It was completely different under the Khmer Rouge. I could not attend school. I did not enjoy the comfort of my parents, and I had to live separately from my parents. We were not given sufficient food, and we had to find supplement for the food that we was given. So you could not compare the situation between these two conditions or events. Question. When you were asked to leave Phnom Penh through the evacuation, what kinds of orders were given to you by the Khmer Rouge soldiers, and could you refuse the orders, or the orders were absolute that you had to leave? Answer. I was pretty young, and I did not know about the event clearly. What I recall was that in the morning, the soldiers arrived, and I did not even know they were the Khmer Rouge soldiers. I only knew they were the liberation soldiers, and they came to liberate the people from Phnom Penh, and that people from Phnom Penh should leave Phnom. People who came to liberate Phnom Penh told the people that to leave it temporarily, that they would have to cleanse up the capitalist groups first, and after they cleanse the city, then people will be allowed to return. Question. When you were evacuated from Phnom Penh and en route, did the Khmer Rouge monitor track down the people who were being evacuated from their departure until they reached the destination? Answer. I could not observe that clearly as I was young, but I heard the announcement on the mobile loudspeaker on the vehicle that people were asked to return to where they were and to just keep moving in the direction that people were heading and not to travel in the opposite direction. So we kept walking along with other people, and we would rest where we could together with other people, but we would not be allowed to stop for long, as we only had to stop for cooking food, and after that we had to eat quickly and continue our journey. Question. Did you hear or can you still recall that the Khmer Rouge used the word Angka, feudalism, capitalism, imperialism, or the 17 April people? And if you can recall it, or if you heard it, did you know what those terms mean? Answer. I did not know about, for example, the Sarika soldiers. I only knew that during the regime, I heard the word capitalism, capitalist, reactionary, the 17 April people, etc. And the 17 April people were considered the capitalists. I myself was scolded as a 17 April person and as a feudalist. Question. Can you tell the court why you were sent to Sector 109 in Takeo province? Answer. I did not know back then, but people who were living in Phnom Penh, if we were traveling along National Road number 3, then we would be instructed to go toward Takeo, and that is to Sector 109. And other people traveling at different national roads will be taken at different sectors. So while we reached Tonle Bati, we were forced to board the GMC track, and we were taken to the countryside. Question. In your document, you stated that you were also sent to Sector 105. You were sent and worked there. What was the difference between Sector 109 and 105? Answer. In fact, there was no difference between the two sectors. The situation and the condition were the same, that is, hard labor and the insufficient food. We were treated the same, so I believe it came out from one same policy. Question. You said that you lost your grandmother and grandfather. Can you tell the court the reasons for the loss of their lives? Answer. I lost my parents and a large number of my family and relatives. I did not know whether they were taken and killed or they starved to death. But before the liberation of Phnom Penh, we usually visited one another or we went to the theater together. But upon the 17th April of 1975, we were separated. And at the end of the regime, My grandmother and I were waiting for our relatives to arrive at our native village, but we did not see any other family members coming through the native village. Questions. Due to the time limit, I have 2 more questions for you. In the area where you lived, were you treated as human being? Were you given your freedom to live? Answer. Referring to the freedom to live as a human being, that did not happen. We would be monitored day and night. Even while we were sleeping at night, somebody would come under our bed and listen to what we would say. They built small houses and in a row of houses, and we would have to sleep in those houses in smaller rooms. So there was no freedom at all under the Khmer Rouge regime. Question. This is my last question. In your document, you said there was a children unit and you worked in that children unit. What do you mean by a children unit? And what sufferings that the Khmer Rouge inflict upon you and upon other Cambodian people? Answer. We were gathered into a children's unit, and of course I did not understand why there was such a unit. Why young children were gathered up and put into a unit and worked as adults. And in the village, there was actually another children's unit in the village. So, regardless of where we were asked to work as adults in the children's unit. So the purpose of the unit was to separate the male children and the female children, and we were put in separate units. And it's because of the 3-year, 8-month, and 20-day regime, I suffered the bitterness, the suffering. I lost my eyesight in both eyes. Madam Singh Sivata, on behalf of the prosecution, I am grateful for your detailed response in this proceeding, and I hope that your responses would contribute to ascertaining the truth. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you. Mr. President, I do not have any further questions for this civil party. President, thank you. The floor is now given to Nuon Chia's defense to put the questions to this civil party. You may proceed.
Mr. President, we have no questions.
President, thank you. Lastly, the floor is given to Khieu Samphan's defense to put questions to this civil party.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do not have any questions for the civil party either. Thank you.
President, thank you. Thank you, Madam Singh Sivata. The hearing of your statement of sufferings and impact and testimony has now concluded, and you may be excused from this court. Your statement of suffering, harm, and impact and testimony may contribute to finding the truth in this case. And we wish you good health and good luck, and you may return. Court officer, in collaboration with the VISU, could you assist the civil party saying she would have to return to her residence or wherever she wishes to go. And we also thank you to Madame Chai Marinette, representative from TPO, for your assistance given through this civil party. The proceeding today is now concluded. We will adjourn the hearing today and resume tomorrow, commencing from 8:30 a.m. Tomorrow we will hear the testimony of a witness and an expert. The witness will be testified in the morning session via video link as he is in the United States. And in the afternoon, we will hear the testimony of an expert, that is TCE 12. Security guards are instructed to take the two accused back to the detention facility and have them returned to the courtroom tomorrow morning prior to 8:30. As for Noon Jia, bring him to the holding cell downstairs, which is equipped with audio-visual equipment for him to participate in the proceeding. The court is now adjourned.